Yeah, I'm ready for real.
I'm recording.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Episode 14. Welcome.
West Wing, the Wingin
to our
it.
chat.
The West Wing Podcast.
Take this Sabbath day is the title of this episode of The West Wing.
It's a heavy hitter, guys.
It is a heavy hitter, and I think it's a good time for us to mention that, because we have plenty of controversial topics to go in this series, it's a good time for us to mention, in case you guys haven't noticed yet, that we will not be chatting about the actual politics of the episode, meaning it's not going to be a debate about like how we feel about the death penalty or anything like that. We just want to talk about the show. We'll talk about how they debate it sometimes, and things like that, but we're going to keep our voices out of it. Just to ease any...
Not our voices, because that would be a very quiet podcast.
Yes, it would. You're right. Our opinions. We're going to keep our opinions out of it. We don't want anybody worried about, like, oh, I'm going to listen to this podcast and hear these two girls talk about the death penalty.
It's not that kind of podcast, y'all.
It's not that kind of podcast.
If you're listening to episode 14, then you would know that by now.
Hopefully you know that by now, but, there's a lot more to come, so we just wanted to throw that out there.
This is a safe space, this podcast. Should we sing?
Safe space. Yeah. You don't have to worry about being offended. Yeah, let's sing.
Wait a minute.
I think that's probably the best one we've done.
Oh, gosh.
We were actually together.
That is saying something. I don't know. I don't think I've even told you yet, Sally, but I noticed this on Twitter, which, again, if you guys are on Twitter, hit us up on the tweets. Our handle is Wingin It Pod. So
Twitter at us.
Tweet at us, or you can email us if you'd like. We would love to read emails. I think it would delight our hearts. But what was I going to say? Oh, I saw on the interwebs that there is a Parks and Recreation and West Wing mashup of some kind. There's just go look on YouTube and it's like the park wing or the rec. Yeah, just look for the Parks and Rec and West Wing, and I'm sure there will be some things that come up for Bradley Whitford, but that's not the one I'm talking about. It's like the intro if the two shows had mixed. It's excellent. It's good. So
I would do that immediately. I haven't seen that. So should I just jump into the TikTok here?
Please, yes.
This episode was kind of different because normally there's 15 million storylines going on at the same time. But in this episode, the main storyline is that the Supreme Court has denied a stay of execution for a prisoner on death row this happens on a Friday night, and he's set to be executed at 12 o'clock on Monday morning, or 12:01 Monday morning a.m. And so it kind of puts it in the president's lap as far as he can now pardon him or give him a stay of execution. And they didn't want that to happen. So the episode centralizes around that a lot. One of the lawyers for the guy on death row goes to Simon Cruz is the inmate's name, and one of the lawyers goes to Toby's rabbi and gets Toby's rabbi to give a is it called a sermon? I'm not sure.
He called it that,
him to
but I don't know
speak
if that's
on
what it's called.
The death penalty. And then the rest of the episode just sort of revolves around everyone. Everyone's at the White House. It's on the weekend, and everyone's sort of figuring out how to react to this and whether the White House should give a pardon. Josh went to a bachelor party Friday night and is hungover the next day for really our only other main storyline, which is meeting Joey Lucas.
Yay!
She's working for a candidate. I don't remember where the candidate is.
California
some
46.
California 46. She's working
Not
for a candidate
47.
there trying to win.
Yet.
So she's working for a candidate and wants to talk to the White House because they've cut her funding. And so we get to meet Joey Lucas, which is awesome. And also Sam was trying to go on vacation and he does not get to. He was trying to go sailing.
He took that
sorry,
one
Sam.
last call.
Yep. So that's the gist of it, but then we'll jump in and talk more.
Yeah.
Much more about what happens.
Oh gosh. Well, please let us talk about this wonderful Josh. The wonderful Joshness in this episode.
Let's talk about it.
And a shout out to our Lemon Lyman friends on Instagram.
Yeah.
You guys are just great.
Yes.
So, yeah, apparently Josh can't hold his liquor, and Donna knows it, and she's telling him, she's trying to warn him before going to this bachelor party, that he's probably going to have 2 drinks and then be hungover all weekend, and guess what? Yeah. That's exactly what happens.
It's exactly what happens. He says some line about, like, I can drink with the best of them, and Donna's like, you can't drink with any of them.
Yes.
You can't hold your own at all.
He's like, I'm in politics, okay? I can drink. It's just, gosh, why is he so charming? It's annoying how charming he is. So, this is what I just realized on this. I kind of did a rewatch this morning of this episode, and I think that so Josh comes back from this bachelor party, and he is completely hungover, or is he just still drunk? I don't really know where that line happens. He might still be drunk.
I think he's pretty hungover. Well, yeah, maybe a bit of both.
Yeah, and he's like on the floor in his office. It's hilarious. And he's supposed to be meeting with Joey Lucas. It's Saturday morning, and Donna's there. He made Donna come in, and he's like, oh, when it's over, I'll buy you some shoes. Like, he's trying to make Donna come in, which she doesn't need to be there. She just, he just didn't want to be alone on a Saturday. But, so his clothes are completely ruined, like, smelling gross.
Oh my God. What happened to your clothes?
I may have wrinkled my suit.
Josh!
Donna, you want to speak very softly.
How did you get like this?
People were pouring champagne over each other.
And then wrestling in dirt?
I can't remember, but it's certainly not out of the question.
I'll find some other clothes.
Fine.
Are you going to listen to me from now on?
I'm not even listening to you now.
I said, are you going to listen?
Yes.
And so she has to, like, go get them dry cleaned and find a different outfit for him to wear during this cleaning. And so I didn't realize that she took Sam's, like, sailing bad weather outfit. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't get that.
Which is really funny, but also sad for Sam. We're only, 14 episodes in, and Sam has already had vacation troubles twice. Like, Sam is never going to get to go anywhere.
That's true. He's not going anywhere. Nobody. I mean, you can't go on vacation.
No.
He was going to try to go sailing. That didn't happen.
Yeah. No go. Sorry, bud. Yeah, so the whole Josh episode thing is just really fun. And I really just enjoy, we see a couple times them on the weekends, and I really enjoy seeing everybody on the weekends. Something about
me too.
Seeing them outside. They're all in, like, their sweatshirts and their whatever, and it just, like, humanizes them.
Yeah.
And you just feel like you're just hanging out,
Yeah.
So I just enjoy when they are off the clock, but still in the White House. I think that makes for a different dynamic and a fun feeling for the episode.
I wonder what it's like in the real White House in terms of how many people are working on Saturdays.
Yeah, and how they act. Like, do you really? Is it really a more relaxed feel? Are you in your sweatshirts, or are you? I don't know. I just because, for instance, Bartlett in this episode, he's seen in, like, a sweater and a sweatshirt. Like, he's not ever. I don't think at any point in this episode he's in, like, a suit or anything, which is cool because the whole episode he's sort of struggling with this. It just, like, humanizes him, and he's struggling with, how do I do this? How do I react to this as the president and as, like, a Catholic? And so I think seeing him in those clothes sort of drives that point home a little, or maybe I'm just being crazy, but you just relate to him a lot more, and so his internal struggle and his dealing with this becomes more personal.
But listen, let's talk about this, because we've already had, and I know this is just for the conflict, because that's where the drama is, like the struggle of integrity and, like, your moral code versus your obligation politically and legally and all that kind of stuff aside. But he's already had issues with going to taking the first military action. So this is a similar kind of thing where there's going to be a death if he doesn't intervene. And I know it's Saturday. I know we're relaxed. We're wearing sweatshirts, but he's just like asking random people like what they think. And I just felt like that's a little too off the cuff for me. Personally.
It's a little too off the cuff.
Like
but I
also
think it just sort of, I think it just sort of reinforces how unsure he is. I think he's hoping that somebody's just going to say one thing that's just going to make it click and be like, that's it. But also talking about but I agree. It's odd that he asked Joey Lucas because you would think, like, this is just going to cloud your judgment to hear more. But I really love when he brings in his priest, like, from home, and he asks him if he prefers Jed or Mr. President. And that's one of my favorite moments because he responds that if it's okay, he'd really prefer Mr. President because he has to remember that, like, in this room, he has to make those decisions. And he's not Jed. He is the office. And I really, really love that whole speech.
Yeah, I liked it as well.
I like it.
It was great. However, that happens at the end, so it's like Sunday at 11:57 p.m. or something. So it's right before this execution is going to happen. And there's still time. Yeah. Like, the president could intervene. And he's bringing in his priest because he wants to talk about whether he should do anything or not. And he brings the priest in. It's 11:57, and the guy's like, show me around the room. And they're just, like, having a little chit-chat. And I'm like... hello. No, I think wait?
he's already decided because he says when the priest comes, he says, I feel like it's a wasted trip. Bartlett tells the priest it was a wasted trip, and I can't remember why we think that already, but he's already decided what he's going to do, and now he's just sort of waiting it out.
I know.
Which, side note, they talk about that he spoke to the Pope. Do we think that he spoke to the Pope? What language do we think he spoke to the Pope in? Right? Is this just me wondering this?
Is this like a knock-knock joke or like a... No! is there like a rabbi and a pilgrim in a boat with the Pope too? I don't know.
No, I just was curious about that. What language they would have taught, or they use a translator?
I honestly don't know, Sally. It probably depends on what language the Pope spoke at the time.
Maybe the Pope speaks a lot of languages. That's probably likely. I just Googled Pope Francis's language, and he speaks German, Spanish, and Italian. Gosh. But none of those are English. I don't know. I digress. I just was curious.
We're really smart here at Winging It. We know that those are not English. And that we don't speak any one of those.
Those aren't English. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. That's great, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Just an interesting thing.
Also, I did kind of like the reference to that common proverb of the way that God sends wisdom. The religious man was drowning and asked God why he didn't send wisdom. And he's like, I sent you a priest, a rabbi, and a Quaker, Mr. President. Not to mention his son, Jesus Christ. What do you want from him? So, yeah, it was...
That's a great little thing. It's it's similar to Leo's, like, man in a hole story that you're just listening and you're like, I know this is going to go somewhere good, but I don't know where yet.
You've heard that.
I like it.
But you've heard that before, right? That whole, like...
No.
That proverb.
I mean, I've heard the idea of, like, why didn't you do something? Well, I did. I sent you, or I sent you this. Like, I've heard that. I hadn't heard that exact thing until I watched The West Wing.
Well, it's also in the... I'm just going to keep a tally of how many Will Smith references I make. It's also in the movie The Pursuit of Happiness. The same.
Oh.
The same
I've
thing.
seen that, but I don't remember.
The little kid actually says it, Jaden Smith, before he went, cray, cray. Gosh, what else happens? So Sam accidentally-ish tells this prosecutor, this attorney, somebody. I haven't written down the guy's name.
An attorney. I think it's Simon Cruz's, one of his attorneys. I think he's a public
Bobby,
defender.
the public defender. Yes.
Yeah.
So this guy, it opens on Friday night, and this guy's going to try to get something done on the weekend. So they're like, who has the ear of the president? And they get Sam, or I guess he knew Sam, and Sam takes the call, and he lets it slip that Toby was at Temple on Saturday. And so the guy basically arranges to have his rabbi give a message about capital punishment. It's like there's so many little strings being pulled in Washington.
But let's pause for fun fact time. Because you know how I love fun fact time.
Yes.
I have a couple for this episode, but the first one is related to this. And this is from IMDb. I don't just know these things, but I love trivia, so I always am looking at these things. The anti-capital punishment sermon delivered by Toby's rabbi was actually written by Stephen, and I might pronounce this wrong, but was actually written by Stephen Leader, a rabbi at the Wilshire Boulevard Temple in Los Angeles. And that guy actually performed Aaron Sorkin's wedding.
Oh,
and Aaron Sorkin asked him to write that sermon just for this episode.
That is awesome.
Fun fact. Isn't that
cool? Awesome. Nice, Sally.
Yep, you're welcome. The other interesting thing is that Allison Janney was supposedly very sick during this episode and almost couldn't get through one scene. So the IMDb says, luckily her character was supposed to be very upset throughout the episode, so she just is actually sick and looks upset.
I want to look up fun facts like that. You're so good at that. I'm glad that you do that for us.
I like trivia a lot.
The only trivia
I like to be full of very pointless information. So.
I as well. I think we both succeed in that department. Mm-hmm. The only trivia that I could bring to that as well is that Bobby, the public defender, was in the Truman Show. So
yeah, he was.
He was Jim Carrey's friend, which I love the Truman Show. So
yeah, that's well, yeah. I loved it, but it made me really paranoid not really paranoid.
That you were living in the Truman Show?
In the Truman Show? Yeah.
This whole podcast is an illusion, Sally. My real name's not Andrea.
You never know, right? You never know.
Oh gosh. So in case you're not done watching a show that's been off the air for 9 years or so, feel free to go back and watch The Truman Show, which has been released more than probably 20 years now.
Yeah.
Live in the now.
So Toby has a fun moment. Toby's so much more human now in these episodes, but I love when he knocks over all the chairs in the temple when he's taking his phone call in the back of the temple during the sermon. And he's talking to Sam, and Sam is like telling him, Sam's like, I think it is Sam that calls him and is like, your rabbi doesn't happen to be giving a sermon. Yeah. And Toby knocks over all of the standing chairs there, and that's a very funny thing.
Because that happens all the time. Like, I remember at, growing up at church, there's all of those, metal chairs that are stacked. And, of course, when you're, not that I was, sneaking out the back or whatever, but I just feel like at any quiet, opportune moment, that's when you knock down a whole slew of metal chairs, and it's just...
Yeah.
And that didn't have to happen, but that just added a moment of levity that, again, House of Cards definitely wouldn't have had.
No.
And I liked it.
Yeah.
Also, another great moment of levity is in the Josh and Joey Lucas scene. So she, kind of busts into his office, and she's really mad, and Josh is confused.
And she turns out to be a woman, because at first they don't know she's a woman. They definitely don't know that she's deaf, but they don't know that she's a woman. Yeah. And she bursts in, and he's like, oh, what is going on?
Yeah.
And he's doubly confused.
Yeah, and she gets very heated, and Josh finally, picks up what's going on, and he's like, hey, crazy lady, there's no way you're going to see the president. And then President Bartlett just rolls up in there, hey, guys, I'm just wandering the building.
Great. So funny. That was so funny. Yeah, well, and so we could talk about Joey Lucas, who I really love Joey Lucas. And an interesting thing that I was thinking is that I don't even know if I want to say this because it's going to sound mean, but I've mentioned over and over that my hatred of Mandy doesn't have anything to do with the actress. And in watching Joey Lucas, I was thinking, well, maybe it does, because, or at least a little more than I thought, because Joey's lines are equally, she's pretty hysterical in this episode. As in, she's upset, she's passionate, she's emotional.
Yeah.
But the way that it comes across is more likable than any of Mandy's hysteric scenes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it's still just a mix. I mean, Mandy's were way over the top. We're driving her car up on the thing and all of that, trying to kill somebody with her shoe, all of those things. But there is a way, what I think I love about Joey and Josh and their dynamic is that they're both passionate and they get excited and they'll yell and scream and say crazy things, but they're still likable. They're still calm people. They're still relatable characters. They're not just these crazy emotions.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true. That's
they can say these things and we still like them. And I think that's why I enjoy their dynamic more than Mandy.
Yes. And we may see Joey Lucas again on other occasions. So
I hope we do.
So this was the first time we met her, and so she actually ends up talking to Bartlett in the Oval Office. You know, he's asking her advice because he's just crowdsourcing what to do with this man's life. Again, kind of weird.
Yep.
And we have to mention the line: "The devil you know beats the devil you don't," and I like the devil I've got.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yep. Also, I really like, if you're the president, you would not have to argue with anybody that you didn't want to, except Toby, because he's Toby. But, like at one point, Joey tries to, like, keep the conversation going, and the president's literally just like, Josh will take care of you from here.
Yeah.
As in, like, this is done.
Yeah.
This is over.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of fun. Like, you'd just be in control all the time. Like, I don't want to keep talking about this. Bye.
Yeah, that would be a nice power to have.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I had that at, like, cocktail parties. I feel like I've mentioned cocktail parties more than once. I don't go to that many. But any social gathering where you're caught in a conversation, I wish that I had a wingman to just be like, oh, hey, I've got to go do this thing. There's only so many times you can, like, go to get punch or something. You can't just get out of bad conversations.
Right.
No. There was also an interesting Charlie moment. And let's also mention, they've said multiple times in this episode, we've got to get Mendoza on the bench.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mendoza is our Supreme Court.
Yes, they're talking about the Supreme Court, and that will also come into play. I don't know when. I don't know pretty soon, I guess. Perhaps.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It's coming up. But Bartlett has a moment with Charlie where he's trying to figure out, what to do about, this guy. And he says, Charlie, did they find the guy who shot your mother? Like, what happened to him? If they found him, would you want to see him executed? And then Charlie's like, no. And you're like, oh, sweet Charlie, he wouldn't want to see something violent. And then he just says, I'd want to do it myself. Which I just love.
I didn't even.
I just love that they are complicated. They're human they're not human characters. That's kind of an oxymoron. But they're not two-dimensional characters. Because in that moment, they could have just had Charlie be like, no, I wouldn't want that. But, like, they had a reversal again.
Yeah, I like that because I think it would have been unrealistic for him to say, not unrealistic because some people would feel that way, but just from what we know about Charlie, it rang more true that he would say that to me, that he would say, I would want to do it myself. Like, yeah, it was a little bit shocking and it was a little bit whatever, but it also felt very honest. Yeah. It felt very, like, we don't know that if it came to it that he really would, but it rang true that he would like to think that he would for me. And I like that he felt, it's also a very candid moment between he and the president, that he felt okay to say that too, to not be like, oh no, whatever. I don't know. Because you wouldn't really want to tell the president that you would want to kill somebody yourself.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was kind of like, oh, well,
yep.
That's kind of, like, that statement could have been used against him in law. Like, if he actually had gone out and killed somebody, like, probably not a good thing to have said out loud. But, that we don't need to worry about that. He's not going to go do anything. No. He's fine. I think the only other thing that I've got written down is that just CJ's having a tough time with this emotionally, even though she said she doesn't have a stance on capital punishment, which is interesting in itself.
She's just sick.
But she's talking to Mandy, and she's got to know all this information about the man who's going to be executed. And, and again, she doesn't have an opinion about the issue itself, but she does say, like, I just wish I didn't know his mother's name was Sophia. Just the fact that it's personal, and it's personal now to her.
Right. And it was a beautiful moment. I thought it was so well done because CJ is emotional about it and she's upset about it, but she's not hysterical. She's not over emotional. She's not, it's just she's very calmly like, I just wish I didn't know his mother's name. That's all, and I liked that they had her struggling with it, but also dealing with it professionally. Like it wasn't an overreaction. It was just a very well done scene for her, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I really liked the, obviously the name of the episode is, Take the Sabbath Day. And so much of it revolves around Toby, right? So, and I guess the point is that they don't do executions on the weekends or on the Sabbath day. So,
right. Which is interesting.
It is interesting. And, and Toby is, again, kind of struggling with his own influence. He's talking to his rabbi and he's saying, like, hey, I don't influence policy, right. I do the public face of the administration. And when he's meeting with his rabbi, the rabbi just kind of points out to him, like, hey, you're in a position of influence, like, whether or not you recognize it. So, I don't know. I just kind of liked that, personally.
I did, too. I thought that it was a good way for him to, because we're still only 14 episodes in, we're still we've heard what people are doing, what everybody's jobs are, but it was a good, like, more defining moment of what Toby does. And I just thought it was a good moment. And he has a moment, Toby then later goes and talks to the president in the Oval Office, and he's very quiet about it. This isn't the yelling Toby, this isn't combative Toby.
It's whisper Toby.
He's very sort of like, and I thought that was really nice. That's a much, because you see moments like this, and then you realize, oh, like, this is why Bartlett puts up with the moments that he's sort of more curmudgeon, because he then has great moments like this where he is wise and struggling and more approachable and relatable and likable.
Yep, we love Toby. The other thing I was wondering, just speaking about people's their job roles, is that why was Sam setting an appointment for Josh to meet with Joey Lucas to begin with? You know what I mean? Like, I
think it was because somebody called for a favor. And so I think...
Was it?
It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to set up a meeting for you. It was, somebody named O'Dwyer needed a favor.
Okay.
And so they had called Sam or Toby, and so Toby was like, they just want you to meet with this guy, blah, 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 but I can't do it because I'm sailing.
Maybe this is me reading into it too much, just knowing kind of the other things going on. But it feels like, and this is not the first time it's happened in these first 14 episodes, where it feels like Sam is doing more that's not just communications, because I think they wanted his role to be bigger because it was Rob Lowe. And it seemed like he was doing things that didn't fit his actual job title. And it seemed like he had more authority in some cases than Josh. But I really feel like Josh's role has more authority over everyone. He's the deputy chief of staff. So it just felt strange to me that he was setting an appointment. But I guess if he was just helping out a friend or something, that
it was
sense.
It was a favor, and he wanted to go sailing, so he passed it on to Josh. There was also a moment with the president and Leo were talking about this as the president was talking with everybody. Mm-hmm. And Bartlett's struggling with this because he says something about, like, I can decide this way, or why do we pardon one guy and not another guy? Like, we want it to be consistent, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And Leo's response to that is, if that's your only concern about it, then I'll say this for the first time, let that be the next guy's problem.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. It's not what I would have expected from Leo, really. It was, I don't know, it's not the opinion I expected him to have, I guess. But I can't really pinpoint why. It sort of surprised me when he sort of was just like, well, if that's your only hesitation, then do it, And I was just like, well, I don't know. So just a moment I thought was interesting. I really loved Bartlett's reasoning on it. I liked, this isn't the first time, there are many, many times we see this, but I like watching him wrestle with his religion versus his leadership.
It's true.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic, and it's portrayed, I just think it's portrayed very well. It's portrayed with, like, respect, I guess. It's not, he's never made fun of or anything. It's just done very well, I guess.
Yeah. It's that internal struggle, and Martin Sheen plays it so well.
Right. It always feels genuine. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, it doesn't feel like a forced struggle. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel sort of like a caricature of religion. It feels like a genuine portrayal of it. Yeah. I guess that's what I was going for.
They give it space to breathe in different characters. Yeah. And
everybody's different characters.
They show that it's involvement with politics because there's no way for it to not be involved. But right. Again, I appreciate that as well. Well, do we want to pick an MVP?
Yes.
Yes.
But I don't know who.
You're going to go first this time, Sally.
MVP. I guess I kind of want to say Bartlett. Just if for no other reason than it's cool to watch him. It's fun to watch him struggle. No, but it was an interesting episode for him emotionally, and okay. I'm gonna say Bartlett. I'm just gonna go with it.
Okay, cool.
How about you?
I was going to say Toby because I really liked. He kind of won it for me, and in fact, I will say Toby. I was gonna say Sam just because he took the call that on that Friday night. Yeah. So I mean, Sam's the one, and
I feel like there are two kinds of people in the world: the people who would have taken the call, and the people who would have gone sailing.
Would you have taken the call?
Who would have? Probably, yeah.
Me too.
If we're being honest, yeah. I mean, when it comes to your job, I'd have taken the call.
I don't sail.
And I think those kind of people are the people who end up in the White House. So that
yes. Me. Can I upgrade?
Well, not that we're gonna get in the White House, but I mean,
we are.
The people in the White House are the people who take that call.
It's true.
Also, we didn't get to talk about this, but there's a moment with Bartlett getting off the plane.
Yes.
And he and CJ have had a terrible ride together, and that whole scene could literally be me and my dad. I thought that was such a funny dynamic.
He's been boring her with trivia.
Yes, she is just
custom.
not having it.
He does that.
So I meant to mention that earlier. Sorry to throw us out of order there, but that was worth mentioning.
Yeah,
I think.
Charlie.
Very funny.
Charlie and CJ were just so annoyed on the flight back from Germany. Yeah. These are long trips, people, to be with a president who likes to either be waxing philosophically or telling you history lessons. So
right,
it was pretty fun.
Right. So
cool.
Yep. All right.
That's
it. Our next episode is Celestial Navigation.
Oh, I don't like this one. The next one.
I don't really remember it, but I'll remember it as soon as I read it.
Actually, I think I probably do like it, but there's one particular part that is bothersome to me, and the lemon limons probably know what it is, but it's okay.
Uh-oh.
But we'll find out when we get there. We'll see you guys, hear you, tweet you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.